Welcome to this call for America's Top Agents. Uh, let me explain for those of you who don't know what America's Top Agents is where we talk to the top agents throughout the nation. We do interviews with them. We have masterminds with them. We just held our first mastermind in Scottsdale. It was an open mastermind in terms of we didn't have any major topic selected, but it turned out the secession was the major topic because that was everybody's concern. So we spent a good deal of time on succession. Melinda was going to be a big part of that. And then because of snow problems, she wasn't able to get out of the airport and had to cancel, which we were all disappointed in. But going into the future, America's Top Agents, we will be doing multiple masterminds geared at a specific topic so that we can bring in people who are really interested in that topic and we can really go deep on it. So we've lined up, our next one's going to be in June in Saugatuck, Michigan, where Laura is. And it's going to be, instead of, I found out I've always used Four Seasons for all my conferences, and Four Seasons were great when it was a conference and we had 250 rooms to book. When we had less than 20 rooms to book for the mastermind, I lost money on it. So I will not be doing that again. We've rented a really huge house right on the lake that Laura got to us, and we'll be doing a sort of big chill thing where everybody will have their own bedroom and it'll be kind of fun. So that will be on a double focus on those that are really interested in luxury properties and then those that are also interested in second homes, not necessarily luxury. So it'll be a double instance. So even if you're not in a market like Sagatuck, you'll be looking at people who may be buying a pied a terre or a second home in your market or a second home someplace else that you can refer them to. So we're looking at pretty much higher wealth individuals and what you need to do to do that. We came up with this topic between Laura and my good friend Paul Grover, who's the top broker on Cape Cod, and we will both be there in June. Um, we have I've decided that membership in the group is going to be solely by invitation. There's no fee or anything for the first couple of years. We will probably do 3 of these type of Zoom calls per year and bring in an expert to do them. And then we'll have very specific um, um, masterminds about where we can do deep dives. And I will be calling each of you and other people that we want to be part of this group. I will be calling you individually to invite you in the group. And again, there will be no cost for this. The cost will come from the masterminds at the beginning. All right. Did I explain any questions on that, or did I explain that okay?
Good.
Okay, so great. We are going to start the topic of secession, and this is Melinda's path along with her new partners on how she got here. So I'm going to just start with some questions, Melinda, and then you'll bring in other people when everything is appropriate in the conversation. So at some point, you decided that you wanted to put a plan in for how you would back out of the business eventually. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was the impetus? I mean, what made you start thinking about those questions?
Well, I think we all do. I mean, through all the years of Star Power, and I've probably been in the business longer than anybody on this video, so I've been thinking about it a lot longer. Um,
What year
so
did you
many,
start?
I'll be 48 years this year,
Oh, you're longer than me.
so 78.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that so many agents that I've seen in the past have simply let their businesses sort of die a natural death, so to speak. They may choose an agent or two that they give referrals to, or Long and Foster had a program where you went into sort of a referral network when any of your past clients called you, you'd pass it on to them and then you would get a referral. So I looked at that thinking that, it was very difficult when somebody doesn't know someone or have that connection to just immediately hand somebody over to someone they didn't know. I think Beth Massey, who has been in the group a long time also, really was the pioneer with this as she joined forces with Jim Fox in Virginia. I don't know if anyone, I know Wendy recognizes her name, but she did a very successful job integrating him into her business, where at first she was the forefront. They were sort of then side by side, and then he became the forefront. So
Can
on,
I can I can I can I interrupt? And I'll be interrupting a lot because that's what I do best is interrupt people. What so you could have gone in a lot of different directions, Melinda. You could have just sold the business outright. You
Mhm.
could have worked an agreement where it was commission referral for X number of years. But you decided to go with bringing in other people. What helped you to decide you to go in that direction versus one of the other directions?
I think to sell your business outright, and I think that's what Brian Bomba is possibly looking to do. But I think for anyone up and coming, to have that amount of money on some payout, there's really no guarantee for them. It's a large amount of money, and it means stepping away like right away. So here's your money, and I'm out. I think what John and Karen and Eric and I all feel, because Karen and Eric are probably behind me in terms of retirement by, maybe 10 years or so, and John a lot longer, is that we combine forces. Everyone sort of knows us as a unit. Karen and Eric do business in the areas that I do as much. And so all of us working as a group, it's easy when I want to have more of life, go overseas, take time off, that I am able to, know that my people and clients are in good hands. And I think the more that they start seeing the group as a whole, we're going to start to morph from everything not being Estridge Group into Estridge, Murtagh, Coplen.
Okay, but before you got to this group that is obviously a good fit, you attempted some other fits that did not work out. Can you talk about that and what you learned from those experiences?
Um, Everyone needs to know that they're on the same path, they have the same mission statement. This is not, and we've talked about this before, all about the money. I don't think there's every or ever a time where everything's going to be completely equal. Sometimes people join forces and just split everything 50-50. Other people have different ways. I mean, that's probably a very complicated part of it. Who gets what, whose areas are what, clients that overlap. But I think that knowing that your clients that you've spent years nurturing and taking care of, that legacy lives on. I mean, we probably have,
Agreed, agreed. I guess what I'm getting at is when you ran up to these earlier fits that didn't work, why did they not work?
because I think that their vision of the future was very different than mine. I
Can you
think,
give me an example without naming names?
um, well, one of them was a personal issue. They started a relationship with someone in their group. And so that was going to make it very difficult, on my side for everyone to work together, in synchronicity. One of the people was in a very different area than mine. And through the process of interviewing and talking about joining forces, they went off and started their own company. And so they really solidified what they wanted, which was different than what I wanted. So I was planning to stay with the same company, until I probably retire. And the areas that somebody works in is really important also. They need to have a deep understanding of the geographic areas and the kind of business you do, the price points, the clientele. And so after a couple of sort of, and then there was one group that both were together. They approached me and then they split up. And it was a kind of ugly situation. They had nothing in writing, which is the one thing I think all of us felt pretty passionately about, that we wanted a clear understanding moving forward, on paper and just a mental understanding, which I can't stress enough.
Awesome. So you went through these events. And then how did you approach, or how were you approached to working with your current partners?
I had a manager a few years ago that had talked about John often and said, I know you're thinking about this, and he's really someone I think you would do well with, get along with. He's very energetic. He's a superstar. He was managing an office at the time. And so we both, were talked about through other people. And then finally, because he had sort of gotten together with Eric and Karen that I've known for years, said, they were also looking at somebody else that sort of imploded at the last second, and you can speak with them about that. So approach me, and I said, yes, I'd like to take it further. I've heard about you for years, and let's talk.
Were all the new partners part of Long and Foster?
Yes.
And do you have um,
Ma'am,
is it structurally, is there, and do you need to stay within Long and Foster, or is that a group decision?
Well, I think it's a group decision, but I think we all sort of felt that this is where we're going to land. And I mean, management was very good to us in understanding what we were trying to do. And in exchange for the loyalty and all the time that I've been there, they were very welcoming, accepting, and doing whatever they could to support us. I think it might be interesting for Eric and Karen to talk about their experience with somebody
Yes,
they got very close to the end with, and then it just, fell apart.
that sounds great. Eric, do you want to talk to that?
sure. I mean, it's as Melinda was has been describing. It's not an easy process to do, and trying to get everything in alignment gets a little tricky. Everybody, has different goals, and if you can find enough alignment with someone that you feel good about, then I think that makes all the difference in the world. I'll tell you 4 points that kind of drew me in this direction because I think it'll help the conversation. Is one of the things that, or three of them I didn't even expect, but the first one is the value of the synergy. When you get people who are thinking in these terms and you start working together, putting a succession plan together, you're simultaneously working on business together, whether you realize it or not. And so that additional value, just by going through this process, was an unforeseen benefit that I think I'd really like to exploit and take to another level.
Would you give
Um,
me an example of that, please?
so we're working with a consultant trying to put together our succession plan, and so we're doing these Zoom calls, we're doing these in-person meetings, trying to get through this, and then you know during these times together, we're having real estate brokerage conversations just because we're waiting for a call to start or just for whatever reason. And it's a conversation we probably wouldn't have had we not been working on this plan. And as a result, these are additional opportunities where you have different people that are entrenched in these marketplaces that are networking just by being together working on something else. And so that was an unforeseen benefit that I really, think is great. Um, One other point, or a couple other points, if you'll indulge me, is that, you know, when you're in this role and you have a team that you're building to help support the greater effort, you start to get much more into a teaching mode. And so when you do that, what I realized is that activates neurons in your brain where you're actually honing your own skills as you teach. And it makes you stronger as an agent just by going through that process. And when we were just doing brokerage on our own, we were never really in the teaching mode. So as we teach the younger agents on the team as part of this greater succession plan, we're also becoming sharper agents just because we're going back into the fundamentals of what we do, which really makes a difference. A third point, if I still have time, is that as Melinda said, she watch some of these agents once their career path ended and it would kind of die. Um, Having the plan in place, you can sell your business, but more important than that is, going through your next chapter of life to have a structured machine in place that you may not own, but is available to you to direct leads and, just business that you stumble upon going forward in life. And you're able to enjoy financially through a referral, is also just seamless. So if you can just immediately direct that lead to the team lead, in our case, that'll be John Coplen. That is much better than trying to scurry around, trying to figure things out through a referral network. And so, looking at having that in place was certainly important. And then finally, for me personally, um, I'm really big on tax planning. And so, over my career, which has now been, this is my 37th year, is I've been deferring a lot of income that I'll be drawing out. Some of it will be mandatory distributions as I get into my 70s. Having some tax plan vehicle in place really makes a difference. And so if you die out of this business and you're no longer an independent contractor, you're no longer able to enjoy those tax write-offs that you may be currently taking. If you stay in this business in a very limited capacity, especially under a succession plan, then as you draw from your retirement in your later years, you may still be able to enjoy many more tax write-offs against your retirement income because of your independent contractor status. And so looking at that, that's something that I think a lot of retiring realtors don't think about.
Similar question that I asked Melinda, why did you decide to go to this group succession plan as opposed to selling your business or doing something else?
Well, it's a lot of work, and John, from a technical standpoint, is leap years ahead of me. I'm more of a dinosaur. I'm probably stuck in the '90s as far as the way I conduct my business. Very heavy relationship driven. I think if, as Melinda said, I probably have another 10 years or so in this. If I want to be competitive for my own real estate brokerage, I need a lot of help. And so by engaging and getting my arms around, colleagues under this group plan, I can take the best of their attributes and integrate that into what I do. And I think that leveraging that synergy, that extra oomph that you get, will help me leapfrog into a higher level of sales overall.
After talking to you guys, a group that we interviewed early on was KMS Partners in Westport, Connecticut. And what they did really brilliantly, I thought, was because of having this group to establish a group where it's not one person's ego, it allowed for the older peoples to eventually get out of the group and to bring in new people. So it was almost an entity all themselves that things can stay alive much longer if you can work out all the kinks and be on the same page. So let's go into, unless there's anything else the two of you want to bring up,
I wanted to
um,
mention that people need to
please.
understand when you have four very strong people that have done business the way they've done it for a long time, that, giving up some of that control, whether it's me writing an article that everyone doesn't completely agree with to a social media post that John may feel strongly about, it really is stepping back and coming to a consensus and letting go. And I think for people that have run their own businesses for years and sort of been the lead dog, to be able to level that out amongst a number of people, is not easy for any of us that are, type A personalities. But I think we've done, it's always take a deep breath, look at it from their perspective. I mean, John embraces social media. We've done more than that than we've ever done before. We had to create an entire new domain, website, emails, transfer of our CRM platform, went to a whole new platform with all the contacts and informations that we had. I mean, it's been an incredibly intensive labor, to bring all of that together. And then when people call in, who splits what, whose client is whose, there's just a lot to work through. So you need to know that everybody, is complicit and in agreement and willing to let go of the reins a bit for the greater good.
Say on a personal evolutionary path, about when I'm talking about your own personal growth, that a lot of you on this phone call have been the head dog for a long time, been the rainmaker, and your teams are known as the Wendy Banner team, the Patrick Lilly team, whatever. And that's one source, that's one part of your personal evolution. But when you can go to the next step, which is about collaboration, which is what you're talking about, it means putting some of your ego aside in order to collaborate. I have found in those instances when I've allowed that to happen, that it's a much more rewarding process, number one. And number two, the results are far better than what you had been doing on your own when you thought you were the cat's meow. Do you agree with that? Yes, Melinda?
Yes, very much so.
Same, so Eric, and I'm sorry, what's Eric's partner's name? I'm
Karen.
sorry.
I'm here.
Karen, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No
Nice
worries.
to meet
absolutely.
I was
nice to
writing
meet you.
paper.
Well, that's always good. That's
I know
always
it is.
good. All right, so let's go to the process now. So first of all, you guys you need professional help to do this, because this is, tell me the professions that you needed to bring in to structure this.
John, why don't you speak to that?
All right, sorry, I was on mute. Um, the Karen, we had tried sort of like Melinda had done. We had tried this before, and I'll tell you, in the previous attempt for this being successful, I realized that trying to facilitate this on your own is almost impossible because it just doesn't allow you to get a clear, objective view of it. So I think having someone step in and walk you through that process is extremely helpful. The other thing is that it also then structures it in. If you're paying someone to help you, and you're paying that cost, it makes you want to show up, and then also it's on your calendar, and then you just show up every week, and you kind of move a little bit of home, a little bit at a time each week. It's not, some of it's really boring conversations that we had about, we would sit there and debate one line over how something's going to work for 20 minutes, but it had to be done. And I think by doing that, there was a real clear understanding of how things were going to work. So I think having someone facilitate is the best way to go for this.
Who's the facilitator for you? I don't need his name unless he's in. That's what he does in a role
it was
nationally.
Cleve Gladys, and he does this for other people. So I know
Okay.
yeah. So
He was
Cleve will
with
do this for
Earl
other people.
So Cleve is great. Cleve is great, and Cleve works with Verl Workman, or he used
Yes.
to. Does he still? Okay.
Still.
And
Yeah.
Verl Workman is a coach.
Yeah.
How did you guys collectively decide to work with Cleve, or did you all know Cleve separately?
Melinda made us do it.
And what did Cleve bring to the table?
And I actually had worked
really
with Cleve.
He was really, Melinda, I'm joking aside, Melinda had a long relationship with Cleve. She really trusted him. I think we talked about several other people, but it made a lot of sense because once we kind of looked at what was out there. Cleve was, he really operated as a facilitator, as a neutral third party. He was able to ask us difficult things that we probably wouldn't ask ourselves, and then help us kind of think through that too. So I think, having someone being able to put everything on the table for you, make everyone talk about it, facilitate you through the process is really important because, you kind of like we do in any other situation in our life, sometimes we skirt around the difficult conversations.
And John, just to continue on that, that helped us form our complete operating agreement.
Yeah.
We went through every section that you could think of for a business plan, put it down, and then we tweaked it, and that became our, how many page, 15-page operating agreement that we could take then to use to form, LLCs, etc. That became the Bible. So that was money well spent.
And I would assume that this is not the first time Cleve has done this for other groups.
Correct.
No, it's not. And he's done it for himself too.
So he
Yeah.
has a track experience. So what I'm saying, if other people on this recording are looking for somebody and have somebody who has a track record helping people do this, because it makes a big difference. Did he come to you with a template business operations plan and then you guys adjusted it, or how did you come about doing that?
So Long and Foster had a gentleman named Rich Fino about 5 or 6 years ago
Right.
that was part of Long and Foster's operation to help people with succession and had a formula for how to value your business. They took 3 years and had a percentage and so forth. And so I kind of brought Cleve into it with Rich because I'd heard that Cleve did this sort of thing, interviewed Cleve and worked together with both of them for a little while, coming up with a formula, what was necessary. And Cleve actually scoured the area to look for agents that might be interested in joining together. He was kind of useful in that as well. And then when John approached me and we chatted together, and he and Karen and Eric had already been talking, it just was a natural progression.
Is Rich still doing this sort of thing?
No, he actually left the area, and I think he's in business development, but another line of work at this point.
Okay. So it sounds like if you're with a brokerage, because some people are boutiques, if you're with a brokerage, seeing who is available for these sort of things within your brokerage can be really helpful. Did you guys need in the process, besides Cleve, did you need to bring in anybody like attorneys, accountants, any of those types of professional services?
Yeah, of course. What we did with Cleve is we put together kind of an outline of a document that was pretty far along, but then we had to have attorneys make it attorney level, which is always, a disaster because every attorney wants to be an attorney. So yeah, we had them kind of finalize it that way, put it into legal documentation and pay an attorney to do that. And then of course we also then had, everyone has kind of different sort of,
Corporate
retirement
LLC.
savings accounts that are impacted by taxes. So each one had to have their accountant look at things. So, that we had to do all of those steps.
Sort of organization did you sell on? Sounds like a LLC. What type of LLC?
Yeah, I was going to go back to what you said earlier because you asked if Cleve ever came with a template. And one of the things that Cleve told us out of the beginning was that he has seen this work out and be done in many ways, and that there isn't one solution or one fit, for everyone. So there wasn't any kind of design that works for any one person. So what we came up with is going to probably look a lot different than what someone else might come up with in terms of how you would transition that. Yeah, in the end, we have an LLC that is owned equally by all of us, and that's what's operating us.
If somebody then decides to leave the LLC or unfortunately passes, how is that shift, and how can you bring in new people if you want to down the road?
There's a clause in there for all of that stuff, which I know is crazy, but that's one of the things that we talked about. What happens if someone passes away? What happens if someone wants to voluntarily leave? And if bringing someone in, then it has to be agreed upon by all the existing partners, basically. So that's how
100% agreement, 100% buy-in. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Insurance policy too.
Yep, we have an insurance policy on us, if one of us goes. So, yep.
Yeah, I got to be careful stepping off curbs.
Especially if Bob is helping you step off that curb, Melinda.
He may push me.
All right. Can we talk about some of, and I don't want you to put out anything that you're not comfortable saying on a Zoom call, but would you be willing to discuss any of your agreements about how you share income, how money comes in and comes out, some of the agreements, how marketing is done, you name it, anything that would just give some people some thoughts for how they might do it themselves.
Guys, are you okay if I talk about it a little bit? I won't talk about it in too much
Go
detail.
for it.
Okay. So this is one of the things that I was mentioning earlier was there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, you could do everything from everyone shares all the income and splits it evenly, or you split it up. There's many ways to do this. The way that we opted to do this is your sales are still your income, but off the top, we're contributing a percentage that covers marketing and expenses as the group, if that makes sense. And then we have ways to share deals together internally that are structured. So if you bring somebody in, how that works, if that makes sense. So we didn't collectively go into the pot on income. That'll still be paid separately, but we're contributing off the top each time. So
And
that
off
was a
the
little
top of
cleaner
each-
for us.
Off the top of each deal or just on a monthly basis?
No, on the top of each deal, it's automatically deducted by Long and Foster. It'll go into a shared account.
So what's difficult, Patrick, is that, with Eric and Karen and I covering much of the same area, and they had a separate mailing, and so did I. Now we've combined all that, right? So when someone calls in, how do you determine to do that? So to start, where whoever asks, if someone says, I need Melinda to come out or I need Eric and Karen, if they say, I just want somebody from Estridge, Murtagh, Coplen, then we've agreed to split that. And when Karen and Eric were out of town once, I went in and secured a listing, and so we split that listing. I think eventually, as I see things coming to pass, we probably are going to be better to just split everything. And if someone has a particularly great year or a lot more income, bonus them out at the end of the year based on some formula that we come up with.
Yeah, because I was thinking if somebody's really producing and other people are not, taking it off the top may not be totally fair. Maybe, may not. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think one of the important pieces of this is you got to look at it that it's a leap of faith. You need to trust your partners, and that the first year, the second year, it may not be totally equitable, but if everybody has a core belief that, there's a greater good by working together, and to give it enough time for everything to gel, I think we're all firm believers that it'll all work out fairly. But if we focus too much on too short a span of time, there's just too many incidentals involved that you'll drive yourself crazy. And so I think you move forward with the best intentions. And then, as Melinda said, at the end of the year, we can see if things are out of whack and we can bonus somebody out. You'll get there, but trying to make sure things are perfectly balanced, I think kind of it takes your attention away from producing and really taking things to another level.
And it's literally a marriage. I mean, when you think about it, not everybody, it's not all about the financial. I mean, Eric has been an incredible guideline for me with lot and development. When people say, is my home a tear down or, should I fix it up, put it, Eric has worked in development for years and been very good at it. And that's an area that I've not really spent a lot of time in. So I can easily go to Eric, who is kind enough to drive past a property to say, it either is or isn't. Here's the value of that lot. Here's what it would cost and what a builder would ask for a property. And that was just not an area that I was very involved with because in the areas that we're in, most of the homes have been there for many, many years. And the only ones that are being torn down is where the home is in disrepair or very small on the lot, that kind of thing. So that the values that we're trading back and forth between each other, is just, invaluable to me.
During this whole process, looking in retrospect, is there anything you wish any of you had done differently that could save other people some grief down the road?
I think one of the things that I think all kind of stressed about was dealing with the lawyer, putting the LLC agreement together. It was just so painfully long, and there was so much in there that didn't apply to us that we looked at that and said, God, that was expensive, and some of that just seemed to be a waste. So I don't know if there's a way to.
I don't know if that was just our attorney pick or what, though. It is sort of similar to when you have an attorney as a client. They just, they have to prove their degree. Like, I don't know. It was really difficult on the attorney side. They just did not understand.
I
So
think
what
the
would be
most
your
important thing,
recommendations? What would be your recommendations on how to select the right attorney to do this? And you may not have the answer to that.
Well, I think we attempted to actually do that because we thought that through, and there was a lot of attorneys that look. There's a lot of attorney firms out there that do like a merger, but they're talking about bigger companies.
Yeah.
So the fee on those things was insane. So trying to find someone that was like a smaller shop that could also handle this, I think that was a real challenge. And I don't know if we found the right person. So, maybe there's someone somewhere in the country that someone knows that we're better at this, but I don't think we found the right person. I think we knew what we were looking for, but I don't think we got it right on that one.
It just took a really long time and it was expensive.
Yep.
I think the cleave component of this, which was months and months of talking things through and what would you feel if and how would you react when and if something happened, how would you address that? Those were all questions that all of us had to do some deep thinking and soul searching, and it's not just about the money. What are you looking to achieve? How many years out? I mean, I think those things were absolutely critical in pulling it all together. Putting the pen to it, I think, was the problem in that they inserted many more things that were unnecessary. And I mean, even having gone to law school years ago, trying to plow through all of that and figure out, I was saying none of this even makes sense to what we're doing. It almost looked like they pulled it off of a, website somewhere and just plugged, in our names and so forth. A lot of it just didn't apply. So.
Which makes sense. Before you came to an agreement, and you were hiring Cleve and the attorneys, how did you handle those expenses
We split them.
Mhm.
evenly?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that was just a verbal agreement.
Mhm.
Yep.
So Karen and
I
Eric
mean,
are one unit, and then it's John and myself.
Got it. All right. So, do any of you have anything before we open up the questions to the group? Is there anything you guys would just like to share that you think is important?
I think we covered a lot of a lot of things. I think the process to this was like one of the most important things. I think so. You asked a lot of good questions on that. So
I think one of the things that we're looking at now is just, getting the most out of our time together as a greater team. And so what we're looking at is just making sure that, we each contribute uh, to team meetings with our strengths. And so we all have, different aspects of this business that I think, we've honed pretty well. And so part of our short-term goal is to get together, identify those topics, and then, assign who's going to lead that discussion. But kind of the expertise that we have across the spectrum is a real strength, and I think that's something that is of great value, and I think will attract uh, agents to join the team once they can appreciate the value of that expertise that is being shared on a frequent basis.
Yeah, and that's another
Awesome.
part of this, as Deji would say, the teachable moment that, being able to improve the lives of the agents that are working with us now and helping them in what is probably a more difficult market than any of us ever entered into when times began, that helping and seeing them come forward is very gratifying for all of us. So through teaching them, we've learned so much. And that, as we move on, I don't think any of us would be able to say, we're done tomorrow with real estate. I mean, it's been my whole life, that, stepping back and closing the door and never doing anything again, I'm not sure what I would, I'd have to figure out the next chapter of my life. This way, you're able to ease out of it, hopefully work when you want to work, go on vacations and know that people are securing the business and that it's all going into the pipeline. That's been a problem. I know Wendy probably does that better than anybody, being away for months at a time and still having her team run effectively. I was never great at that. I felt like I always needed to be there, or that if I wasn't there, I was losing business. Now I feel very differently about that because there's always someone there that can do as good a job.
Thank you. Anybody else before I go to questions from the group? All right, so Pam, yes, this is being recorded. Just send Jasmine or me an email or a text, and when it comes up, I'll send the recording out. In fact, Jasmine, can you go? I'm going to put her. Do you want by Jasmine by email or by text? Okay, I'm putting Jasmine's email address at, in the chat. And then while I'm doing this, um, uh, Lindsay asked the following question. Did Cleve give you any idea how many years you can expect that your name will continue to generate business? She was asking he asked specifically to Melinda, but it can
I
go to
think it
anybody.
depends on, it's funny, Wendy and I have a colleague that was in the area that was, Mr. Uber everything. And he was saying after a year of being out of the business completely, his phone stopped ringing and people don't even know who he was anymore. So I think if you close a door and leave, it's pretty quick before other people are moving into the position, of being the tour de force in their area. If you phase out more slowly, I think the name tends to linger. What John decides to do with the name, we wanted to keep our names, and that was a big question. There's other teams that have gone out and named themselves, different cute little renditions of thing, the energy team, the this and that and the other, so that the names would not be there. But we all decided that our names carried a lot of weight after all these years and people recognize them. So we have an acronym for our name, which is Every Move Counts, Estridge, Murtagh, Coplen. We were very pleased to get that, but we felt the names were important. So how long that lives on, I mean, we'll have to be a testament to that or have the experience to know. But whatever John in the future decides that he wants to do with the naming, I mean, I look at Long and Foster, and I mean, Hank Long was out of the business a couple of years after they started, and he kept Long and Foster for, 50 plus years after that. And no one even asked the question about who Long was.
Um, Robin Gordon asked for team leaders who have successfully transitioned a family member into their business. What structures or sequencing choices helped you integrate a child into the team without disrupting agent confidence, compensation expectations, or team culture, especially when the team is already established and producing at a high level? That's a nice short question.
We're currently in the midst of doing that now. Karen's son Will is joining our team. He's been doing real estate brokerage in New York City, and he and his wife have just moved into this area, and so we're currently, bringing him in. He had to take, we have a test that kind of gauges your aptitude for, and your compatibility with the team. And so he didn't get any shortcuts. Um, but we are starting that. So we haven't done a family member yet, but we are right at the beginning of that, and we're looking at how do we position him so he's a contributor, and what's his niche that can really help him grow the fastest.
Any other questions from the group?
I got a question, Patrick.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Um, did you change the look of your marketing, or did you stay with Melinda, the presentation of your marketing, like your brand and stuff like that? Did that stay the same, or did you come up with a new complete marketing look?
John, you can speak to that.
Well, we did everything new. Yeah, I mean, like, here's the problem. I mean, everybody had their own logos, their own brand, everything going. So what we tried to come up with was something that merged all that, which is really difficult, but really we came up with just something totally new. And I've spent a lot of time working with our team to make sure we kind of re-implement that across. So we actually worked really, really in detail with the team to come up with a entire brand identity, and then there's a brand guideline that we have. So when we pass this off to any graphic designer, it has our fonts, our colors, everything's in one spot, how to use our logo, how not to use our logo. So it's kind of, I literally am just responding to someone a minute ago that was saying don't use our logo this way because they took it apart a different way. So it's one of those things where we had to just rethink it all. And I was actually really proud of what we came up with. I think it's really beautiful, everything we came out with, including the way our sign panel turned out. I mean, it looks like a Long and Foster sign, but just a little bit different. You know, we played by the rules, but kind of made it look like ours too. And I think it differentiates us just a little bit. So there was a lot of
You
work
have
into
to
that.
introduce that to your clients over time. You know, we had a huge client party with everyone's clients together. There were announcements, kickoffs, you know, the mailings introduced everything, talking about what we were doing. I mean, we took about 6 or 7 months to do that. So that was important that someone just didn't see a brand new logo and, you know, different faces and not understand it was still you.
I would like to give you feedback, personally, because I did review your marketing, or at least what I was able to find. It is exceptional, number one. It is so high-end looking. It feels so sophisticated but approachable. I was really, really, really impressed. And you know, I don't give out those compliments often. And secondly, who came up with the sort of line, every move counts? That's just
That was
brilliant.
Cleve.
No, it wasn't Cleve. That was
No?
Right.
website guy, Brad.
Brad.
Oh, that's right, from Dacno.
So
Mhm.
we were
Really?
trying to find we were looking at, you know, it's Estridge, Murtagh, Coplen, and it's like if we wanted to keep
Sounds like
our
a
name.
law firm.
I know, and trust me, we did everything to try not to make a law firm shot. So our group shot is definitely not a law firm. We look more like the Real Housewives of Potomac, but it's really good. And anyway, we were trying really hard not to make it a law firm, and also it's a very hard name to say. So obviously, a URL Estridge, Murtagh, Coplen was never going to work because nobody was
Well,
going to get that right.
EMC was long gone.
Yeah, so EMC squared, of course, was never going to work. So we really didn't, and we didn't want to call ourselves EMC because our names were really important. So Brad found out that everymovecounts.com was available to purchase, and so we paid a little bit of a premium for that, but I think it was really worth it.
And I think
I
it needs,
love it. It's brilliant.
it was an exhaustive effort. It was really
Really?
long involved. It just, you know, we put a huge amount of effort into getting that the way we wanted to.
Yeah,
And it took many iterations to get there.
yeah, and I will say Eric really drove the logo thing, and I was happy about that because I love where it ended up.
And I would imagine a side benefit to this, it's not important, but maybe it is that now in your rankings in what, who does the ranking things? What are they called? When do you know? The thing that ranks your volume and number of units sold throughout the nation, they
Like,
give you the
oh,
top.
search engine optimization, or you mean like
No,
real
no, 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 no.
trends?
Real trends, that's it. Like a real trends. That's going to boost your ranking. Now that you've joined your three businesses together, it's going to boost your rankings in real trends very high.
Yeah, we're already getting those texts and emails. That's already happening. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's gonna it combines our volume very quickly. Yeah.
Any thoughts? Any last thoughts from Every Move Counts?
Well, I think that just joining together has given us all new energy,
Yeah.
kind of falling in love with the business all over again, you know, so to speak. I think it keeps everyone energized and accountable. You know, we tend to get into doldrums sometimes when you've done it forever. So now, because you're showing up and people are depending on you, you know, it's that little boost every day to keep you going.
Awesome.
I think it's also important just to be clear on expectations that in order to pull this off, and John's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting with this, it's a lot of work on the front end to get this off the ground. And it's a huge time commitment. It takes your time and energy. And so you need to be realistic on what it's going to take in order to put something like this together. But I think once you get over the hurdle over the initial startup of it, I think it moves much, you know, much better. But it's important to be realistic that it's the first year is probably going to be pretty hard just because there's so many incidentals that need to be dealt with.
John, we're going to give you the final word.
The final word. Well, I think it's a path that is extremely doable. And I think the thing that matters most out of all of this is picking people that you feel like you align with, because if you can't get that far, then it's not going to work. So I think you have to make sure it's people you want to work with and you want to dive into this with, because like Eric said, it's not a little bit of work, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of really, conversations that you have to be had. So you've got to work with people. So I think picking the right people is the number one first step on this one.
Okay, great. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you. This was really generous of you all, and I know it kind of conflicted with some of your schedules today. But
Oh, it's just we've had this terrible ice storm here, so we've been digging
please, I
out.
got 19. I got 19 inches in
Oh,
Beacon.
good
Get over
heavens.
yourself.
It's
Get
our
over
4
yourself.
inches of ice and people getting stuck in the middle of streets
I
trying to
wonder
get
what's
by.
really worse. My sister's in Greenville, South Carolina, and they got a half an inch, but they have no salt in Greenville, South Carolina. They don't know how to drive. I think I have it better. Again, thank you all. I love you all, and
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year to
Happy
all
New
of you.
Year.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.